There are moments, aren't there, when you just feel a line has been crossed.
Definitely.
When, a calm discussion or just asking politely,
Hmm.
it simply doesn't cut it anymore.
Yeah.
It's that instinct that flares up telling you, okay, this isn't right. Something more needs to happen here.
Hmm.
So today we're doing a deep dive into exactly that feeling, that place where taking a stand isn't just like an option, it feels essential.
Right.
We're looking at a really thought-provoking piece a listener sent over. Joseph E. Sapp's 10 times it's okay to punch them in the mouth.
And what immediately grabs you about Sapp, I think, is his background. He's not just theorizing from, an ivory tower.
Not at all.
As a trial lawyer and also a hypnotist, he's really been in the trenches. He's witnessed human behavior at its most raw, its most unfiltered.
Yeah, he's seen the consequences firsthand, hasn't he?
He has.
And he calls his perspective street level. And you really feel that groundedness in his writing. This isn't about abstract philosophical debates. It's about those visceral moments where a fundamental boundary is just shattered.
Hmm.
He's very clear, though, that he's not advocating for, senseless violence. It's more about pinpointing those times when a strong response, maybe spiritual, maybe legal, or as he puts it, energetically isn't just acceptable, it feels morally right.
And that's precisely what we're going to unpack today.
Yeah.
This piece you sent, it directly challenges that idea of always, turning the other cheek.
Right.
Sapp lays out 10 specific scenarios, and in each one, he argues that a robust reaction isn't just permitted. He sees it as a moral imperative.
So our goal is to explore these 10 points, really understand his reasoning, and get to the heart of what makes these situations so critical in his view.
Exactly. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's jump straight into the first scenario he lists. When they harm the innocent and call it policy. I mean, right off the bat, Sapp doesn't hold back here.
No, he doesn't.
His core idea seems to be that when power is used to inflict harm on vulnerable people, and then this cruelty is disguised as some sort of legitimate procedure or policy, well, that's not governance. He calls it tyranny.
That's a really strong statement. And what's interesting is how quickly he dismisses lengthy debates about it. He essentially says, you don't get a debate, you get the consequences.
Right.
He's highlighting what he sees as a fundamental betrayal of trust, where systems may be meant to safeguard people actually end up causing harm, especially to those least equipped to defend themselves.
Yeah, think about it, and we're absolutely not getting into specific political examples here.
No. Yeah.
Just consider any instance where a rule or guideline, maybe however is presented, demonstrably and negatively impacts vulnerable groups.
Mm-hmm.
Sapp's point isn't just about, oh, that's a bad policy. It's about recognizing when a system betrays its basic purpose of protection.
It's the ethical bankruptcy, as you said, when a system makes harm part of its actual operation.
Yeah, it's that difference between, say, a necessary safety rule and a rule that deliberately marginalizes or punishes a group under the guise of order.
Exactly.
So Sapp's point is, when you cross that line into actively harming the innocent and then try to justify it with official-sounding language, you've forfeited the right to polite discussion.
The response isn't to analyze the policy details anymore.
No, it's to stop the harm. Full stop.
Exactly. And when we talk about the inherency of the situation, we're looking at the underlying truths that make Sapp's reaction feel justified to him.
Right.
In this case, it's that abuse of power. Legitimate governance is supposed to be about serving and protecting, especially the vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
When that gets flipped, when power becomes a tool against the innocent, Sapp sees that as a core violation that demands a forceful response.
Okay, moving on to his scenario number 2. When they laugh at your pain, like it's a game, this one feels particularly raw, doesn't it?
It really does.
Sapp says, if your suffering is their punchline, if they mock your scars for sport, then no, you don't turn the other cheek. You show them why they should have stayed quiet.
Yeah, it hits hard. What's so jarring about this, I think, is the inherent dehumanization involved.
Yeah,
Mocking someone's real pain, it treats their vulnerability as just amusement. It strips away their dignity and validates their experience. It speaks to a profound lack of empathy, maybe something even darker.
It almost feels like a kind of energetic violence, wouldn't you say?
That's a good way to put it.
To have your genuine suffering, something that maybe took immense courage just to acknowledge, met with laughter, ridicule. It's like a second blow.
Mm-hmm.
And Sapp's advice is very direct.
Mm-hmm.
Don't waste time trying to reason with someone who finds humor in your pain. He argues a direct response is needed to make them understand the weight of it.
Absolutely. And the inherency here, the core principle, is the fundamental importance of validating individual experiences. Pain, physical, emotional, whatever. It's real and significant to the person feeling it. To just dismiss it with laughter isn't just rude. Sapp sees it as a fundamental betrayal of our shared humanity. He's advocating for a strong assertion of that reality.
All right, let's look at number 3. When they put their hands on someone who said no. This one is stark. Very little room for misinterpretation here.
Very clear.
Sapp writes, consent is not a suggestion. Violation is not a misunderstanding. If they put their hands where they weren't invited, that's when the universe swings back.
There's a primal clarity to this one, isn't there?
Yeah.
It speaks to the absolute inviolability of bodily autonomy. A no isn't an invitation to negotiate further, it's a boundary. Period.
Stop.
To physically cross that boundary without explicit consent is a profound violation. And Sapp frames it not just as a personal offense, but as something that triggers a natural, almost cosmic consequence.
Exactly. The inherency here is that fundamental right to control your own body. It's about basic respect, acknowledging another person's agency. When that's disregarded, when physical boundaries are breached after a clear refusal, Sapp sees it as a moment where a strong response isn't just legally justifiable.
But morally essential.
Yes. He even evokes that idea of justice arriving, quote, in a closed fist and a clear conscience.
It's a powerful image. It really emphasizes the clarity and the righteousness he associates with defending those boundaries against physical violation.
Okay, moving to number 4. When they prey on the helpless for profit, kids, elders, the voiceless, this targets a particularly repulsive kind of exploitation.
Yeah, this one's tough.
Sapp's stance is crystal clear. If your business model is exploitation, I don't want to hear about your net worth. I want to hear your teeth hit the pavement of karma.
Oof. Yeah, that speaks to the profound moral repugnance of profiting from the vulnerability of those who can't adequately protect themselves.
Right. Children, the elderly, those without a voice. They inherently rely on the ethical conduct of others.
They do.
To deliberately exploit their weakness for financial gain is, well, as Sapp says, it's predatory, in the truest sense.
Absolutely. And the inherency here is our collective societal obligation, really, to protect the vulnerable. There's a fundamental power imbalance in these situations. Those who exploit it are engaging in a deeply unethical act.
And Sapp's visceral language, that teeth hit the pavement of karma line, it really underscores the severity of this transgression in his eyes.
It does.
It's not just questionable business. It's a moral failing
Yeah.
that, to him, demands a strong reaction.
He's cutting straight through any complex economic justifications, isn't he?
Yeah.
Getting right to the moral core. Profiting from helplessness is just fundamentally wrong.
Let's consider number 5. When they spit on the graves of what you survived, this one delves into the sensitive territory of emotional and psychological wounds.
This is a deep one.
Sapp says, if they mock your healing, dismiss your trauma, or rewrite your pain for their convenience, that's not ignorance. That's targeted desecration. And sometimes the only answer is visceral accountability.
Wow. Targeted desecration. That's intense.
Yeah.
But it captures the profound disrespect involved in invalidating someone's past suffering.
Right. And their hard-won journey towards healing. Trauma is deeply personal, often enduring. To dismiss it, mock it, or try to rewrite it for your own benefit, that's a deeply damaging act. It's not just disagreeing. It's a direct attack on someone's lived reality.
Absolutely. The inherency here is the crucial importance of respecting individual healing processes and the validity of past trauma. When someone actively tries to undermine that, to, as he says, spit on the graves of what someone overcame, it's a profound violation.
And Sapp's idea of visceral accountability, it suggests a response that really resonates deeply and undeniably with the perpetrator.
A way of making them truly understand the weight of their actions.
Exactly. And his line, I don't turn away from the fire, I become it. That's such a powerful metaphor for meeting that disrespect with an equally intense, resolute force.
It speaks to a point where, passive endurance just isn't enough anymore. It gives way to an active assertion of one's truth and resilience.
Okay, number 6. When they weaponize your kindness as weakness. This scenario addresses that painful betrayal of goodwill.
Yes. This one happens.
Sapp describes it like this. They begged for grace and then exploited it. They saw the open door and stormed the temple. When someone uses your humanity as leverage, that's when the mask comes off.
This really highlights the importance of setting healthy boundaries, doesn't it?
Totally.
And the crucial need to recognize when generosity is being deliberately abused. Kindness is valuable, of course, but should never be mistaken for naivete or exploited for gain.
Right. When someone consciously uses your compassion against you, it feels like a fundamental breach of trust.
It is.
The inherency here seems to be the vital need for self-protection and the clear recognition that even mercy has its limits.
Mm-hmm. There's a big difference between being generous and allowing yourself to be repeatedly taken advantage of.
For sure.
Yeah.
And Sapp's image of the mask coming off suggests a necessary shift in demeanor, a hardening of resolve when your kindness is consistently met with exploitation.
It's about reclaiming your power, maybe, in a situation where it's been deliberately manipulated.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a recognition that sometimes facing persistent exploitation, a more assertive stance is absolutely required to reestablish those necessary boundaries.
Let's tackle number 7. When they target someone who can't fight back. This one is all about standing up for others.
Right. Intervention.
Sapp states it directly. If you throw a punch at someone too hurt, too small, or too trapped to fight, then what happens next isn't revenge, it's balance. Some fights aren't about ego. They're about intervention.
This really underscores the ethical imperative we have to protect the vulnerable.
Yes.
When you witness someone preying on another who is clearly defenseless, Sapp argues intervention isn't just okay, it's a fundamental moral obligation.
It's not about personal payback.
No, it's about restoring a necessary balance of power and preventing further harm.
The inherency here is that basic responsibility we have as members of a community, really, to look out for those who can't effectively look out for themselves.
It's rooted in empathy.
Yeah, empathy and a willingness to act when others are in immediate danger and just can't defend themselves.
And Sapp's line, "I'll never apologize for standing between a monster and their meal," that really highlights the clarity and conviction he feels about the righteousness of that intervention.
It's powerful.
It's a selfless act, isn't it? Not motivated by personal gain or ego, but by a fundamental sense of justice and compassion.
Okay, number 8. When they keep testing you because you're calm. This one's interesting because it addresses how peace can sometimes be misinterpreted.
Yeah, this is subtle but important.
Sapp writes, being centered is not being soft. Stillness is not surrender. So when someone mistakes your peace for permission, maybe it's time to let them meet the version of you they were hoping didn't exist.
This speaks directly to that crucial difference between genuine inner peace and, well, passive weakness or being a doormat. Someone who's naturally calm might be mistakenly seen as an easy target, so others keep pushing their boundaries, assuming there won't be resistance.
And Sapp suggests that in those cases, maybe a more assertive demonstration of resolve is needed to correct that harmful misperception.
The inherency here is the important lesson that calmness should never be equated with a lack of boundaries.
Exactly. It's about clearly demonstrating that your peace is a conscious choice, an active state, not a vulnerability to be exploited.
Right.
Sapp's idea of letting them meet the version of you they were hoping didn't exist implies a firm, maybe unexpected display of strength.
To put an end to the testing.
Yeah, definitively.
It's a way of communicating, maybe not through aggression, but with undeniable firmness, that your boundaries are solid and will be defended.
Let's move to number 9. When they try to rewrite what you know you lived, this tackles gaslighting head on.
Oh, yes. Gaslighting,
It-
but deeply insidious tactic.
Sapp says, with real force, gaslighting isn't just a tactic. It's a violation of reality. If they rewrite the story to erase what you endured, then maybe it's time you gave them a headline they can't forget.
This really shines a light on the damaging nature of it. It's a deliberate attempt to undermine someone's fundamental sense of reality.
Yeah, make them question their own memories, their perceptions, even their sanity.
It's incredibly disorienting and harmful. Psychological manipulation at its worst, really.
And the inherency here is the fundamental importance of trusting your own lived experiences, the validity of your own memory.
Absolutely critical.
When someone systematically tries to deny or distort your reality, it feels like a profound violation of your sense of self.
It is.
Sapp's call to fight for memory like it's sacred scripture really emphasizes holding on to your truth.
And the headline they can't forget.
It implies a strong, unequivocally clear assertion of that truth. No more ambiguity.
It's ultimately about reclaiming your own narrative, isn't it? Refusing to let someone else dictate or erase your lived experience.
Okay, finally, number 10. When you've tried everything else and they still keep coming. This is presented as the real last resort.
The point of no return, perhaps.
Sapp explains it with this sense of finality. You reasoned, you warned, you left the door open and the light on, and they still chose harm. That's not a mistake. That's intent. And that's when you remind them, you didn't survive to be polite. I don't start fights. I end patterns.
Wow. Yeah, this scenario addresses that critical point where persistent harmful behavior, despite all reasonable attempts to resolve things.
Despite giving them every chance.
Exactly. It clearly reveals a conscious, deliberate intention to cause harm, when all the peaceful avenues are exhausted and the harmful actions just keep coming.
Relentlessly.
Sapp argues that a more decisive, impactful response is not just justified, but necessary to finally break that pattern.
The inherency here is that difficult recognition that sometimes, despite our best efforts, some individuals are just intent on causing harm.
It's a hard truth.
And in those unfortunate situations, continuing with polite negotiation might not only be futile.
It could even enable more harm.
Right. Sapp's declaration, you didn't survive to be polite, serves as that stark reminder that self-preservation and stopping the harm can sometimes necessitate a less conventional, more forceful approach.
It's about recognizing that point when a harmful pattern just needs to be unequivocally ended.
Yeah.
It's the difficult but sometimes necessary acknowledgement that despite our preference for peace, a firm, decisive action becomes essential to protect ourselves or others from ongoing intentional harm.
So as we've gone through Sapp's 10 scenarios, some really powerful themes keep coming up, don't they?
They really do. Consistency there.
He continually emphasizes the importance of establishing clear boundaries, trusting your instincts, and recognizing that in certain moments, what looks like aggression might actually be, in his view, a necessary and righteous act of consequence.
He states with real conviction that in those specific times, mercy would be treason. That's a strong line.
It is.
And it's vital to remember, as Sapp himself makes clear, these punches he talks about aren't necessarily literal physical violence.
Right. That's key.
They represent a forceful, righteous response on whatever level is most appropriate, spiritual, legal, energetic, whatever fits in response to what he sees as a fundamental violation.
So, as you've been listening to this deep dive, maybe take a moment to consider those moments in your own life. Where do you draw your lines? When do you feel that taking a stand, offering that forceful response, becomes not just acceptable, but morally imperative for you?
It's a personal calibration, isn't it?
It really is.
Wow.
What are those deeply personal lines written in blood and shadow, as Sapp might put it, within your own experience? And when those lines are crossed, what kind of mark are you prepared to leave?
That's a challenging question.
It is. And in a world that often prioritizes politeness, conflict avoidance above almost everything else, how do we discern those sacred moments when making real impact truly becomes a profound form of communication? Maybe even, as he hints, a form of prayer.
Yeah, it really comes down to discerning those critical moments, doesn't it? When passivity inadvertently allows harm to continue, versus when a decisive response isn't aggression, but a powerful, necessary assertion of fundamental values and boundaries that simply cannot be crossed.
Well, thanks so much for taking this deep dive with us today. We sincerely hope it's given everyone some important food for thought.